Hey, good morning, guys. It's Micah from Sapulpa Times. Welcome to Friday's edition of the show. It is going to be a solo commentary type show today. Had some stuff happen this week that I want to kind of address with you guys and bringing to light some pretty awesome things to talk about here. We started digging into the Sapulpa history about what has happened over the years as different people have tried to bring businesses into Sapulpa. And we're going to talk a little bit about their journey and maybe kind of pinpoint some of the issues that Sapulpa as a whole seems to have with being able to land some of these bigger projects. So I want to start with this actually, not Sapulpa. I'm going to start with Philadelphia. So this is a billboard from 1970 in Philadelphia, and they had a billboard that was basically a humorous um, poke or a humorous acknowledgement of the reality of Philadelphia at the time. So if you're not aware, Philadelphia at the time was dealing with factory closings, job loss, and much like Sapulpa has had in the past, they were dealing with retailers and stuff leaving the city. And in fact, a lot of people were leaving the city as well. And of course, that just stirred up people in Philadelphia. And so they put a humorous billboard out that said, Philadelphia isn't as bad as Philadelphians say that it is. And even though it was meant to be more of a gimmick than a clever marketing message, it actually did have a pretty good positive effect and ended up turning people around into getting back into Philadelphia. And of course, Philadelphia now is highly regarded as a great city to live in and has been for a long time. So, why am I talking about Philadelphia? Well, actually, to talk about that, I need to talk about what happened on Wednesday. And basically, let me show the story that we were talking about with Lucy. So we did have some audio problems on Wednesday's show. So if you missed it, I apologize about that. But we were talking about Chipotle getting a restaurant in Sand Springs. And we talked about how Sand Springs has basically had a 20-year journey of getting all of these restaurants, the Olive Garden, Schlotzsky's, Chili's, Chick-fil-A, Dutch Bros, before we had Dutch Bros, all these other restaurants over into the same corridor of Sand Springs, right there by Highway 412. And Lucy rightly pointed out that that was a 20-year plan and a 20-year project that they started out with the closing of the mill, the steel mill that I believe they had there, and basically recapturing all that land and making good use, intentional use of it. And so Chipotle was the latest of the restaurants to get to come to Sand Springs. And again, you know, they're being very intentional and active about it. And I think they also captured some of the kind of a tidal wave of sorts that happens when you start to put in one good restaurant and then you add another and you add another, then pretty soon all these others want to follow it because they know that you're going to be getting the foot traffic and stuff that happened there. So you may have already just seen this graphic here, but of course, when we put this story out, we had this comment right here that says, not going, keep having the dreams, and then a bunch of laughing emojis. And so, putting aside the redneck grammar that's going on there, this is unfortunately a common reaction that we have when we try and talk about Sapulpa trying to better itself, become a better destination for retailers, more housing, and things like that. So, uh, it basically shines a light on the worst problem with Sapulpa is Sapulpans. And I guess I kind of want to shine a light on a different side of this today. So let me do this. Let me show you. So I showed you that billboard from Philadelphia in 1970. Let's look at what Sapulpa looked like in 1970. Okay. Here is a picture of Taft. This is the late 1960s to early 1970s, and that is Taft at, I think, Linden Street looking west. And so, very interesting, fascinating photo to see here because if there's anybody who lives in Sapulpa knows now that Taft Avenue is kind of the commercial corridor for Sapulpa, and this is completely full of retail and you know fast food restaurants and things like that. And it's hard to remember a time And in fact, this is before my time, where this part of Sapulpa was so barren and overgrown with trees and pasture and things like that. But there was a time when this happened. And so the Sapulpa that we know and love today, especially in this particular part of town, was really brought about by one guy, and his name is Bob Nail. This is him here on the left, and that's him with Joe Nichols. They were getting a Rotarians honorarium a couple of years ago. And so Bob Nail had been a longtime commercial realtor and is largely responsible for a large part of the commercial success that Sapulpa has seen over the last 50 or 40 or so years, and including Taft Avenue. So what used to be barren pasture land and trees and overgrown woods and cliffs and things like that has become, the retail corridor for Sapulpa, and has brought about just so much in the way of tax revenue and shopping opportunities and eating opportunities and stuff. And it's really largely thanks to this guy right here. He is the one who almost single-handedly went and developed it, and was able to have the conversations with the businesses to be able to attract them to come to Sapulpa in the first place. And that includes one very, very big retailer here that I know I'm going to split the crowd a little bit here by bringing this up. But Walmart had actually been a longtime employer in Sapulpa. And I think at one time, or maybe now, they are the largest employer in Sapulpa. And those of you who have been around a while will remember when Walmart was actually located in what is now the Reese's shopping center over on Maine. I believe that's right. I might be incorrect about that, but on Taft rather. But I'm pretty sure it was originally at Reese's, where Reese's is now in that Rock Creek shopping center, and then they needed to expand, and so they built the new building down where they're currently located. Basically, they wanted to make a super Walmart with the grocery and the additional shopping options there. And so the city actually had a big hand in that. And Bob Nail had a huge hand in that, of course, was able to help bring about the property to make that happen, help develop it, help get them the infrastructure that they needed to bring Walmart to Sapulpa. And of course, it had, something of a negative effect too, because it, caused the downfall of a lot of businesses in downtown. And so that's the common story. What happens when a big box retailer moves into a town the size of Sapulpa is it has an effect on the small mom and pop shops that have been around the town for years and decades. And so Sapulpa was no exception. And as we saw Walmart start to move in, and we saw the shoppers that used to have to come downtown to the different shops in downtown Sapulpa, they started migrating to Walmart because, they simply couldn't compete with price. Big box theory was kind of becoming a big thing then, where people really believed they were getting the best deal and the best service from a lot of these big box retailers, and really kind of led the way into the big box explosion into the late 80s and 90s. And not saying that everything was great that happened from that, but we have to admit that that was the reality of what happened here. So after Walmart moved into town, and it did eventually lead to the closure of several businesses into downtown Sapulpa, Bob Nail was continuing to try to do, what he believed was his mission to bring good retail options to Sapulpa. So I want to talk about one that almost happened and what actually happened when they tried to make it happen. So that's a lot of use of the word happen. Sorry about that. But anyway, so a lot of you guys would be familiar with a piece of property that is over on Taft Avenue now as you start to leave town and head towards Glenpool. There's a big expansive piece of property down by Polecat Creek that is currently for sale. Further down towards 49th West Avenue, it's actually being developed now for the new Muskogee Nation Indian Clinic that is going to be there. But at one time, this piece of property was actually being scoped out and was being planned out for an installation of another major retailer, which is this one right here. And while this might seem laughable right now, because hindsight being 2020, and we can see what eventually happened to Kmart, at the time that they were having this discussion, this would have been a big get for Sapulpa. So Big K and Kmart was the top like three of the world's largest retailers and most profitable retailers at the time that this discussion was happening. And of course, not only would it brought additional shopping options, but when you bring a big K anchor store in, it usually brings in a lot of other retail opportunities along with it. And so the idea that Sapulpa might have been able to get a big Kmart like this could have very well been an even better increase in the opportunities and new restaurants and retail opportunities for Sapulpa in that area. And it was going to be about where, if you know where the Sacred Heart Catholic Church is now, it's kind of hidden back behind the woods there from Highway 117. But if you've ever been driving back down from Glenpool to Sapulpa and you've seen the big red roof of that building, that's about where this shopping center would have been. It would have been about a 16-acre shopping center. I mean, this was all planned out. And the guy with Kmart came to Sapulpa to with Bob Nail, and they walked right into the chamber's office to go meet with the chamber president and some other business leaders in town to try and talk about the possibility of bringing a Kmart to Sapulpa. And what happened? Well, I'll tell you what happened. Actually, Bob talks about this in his book that he released about 10 years ago. And he says that the district leader, developer for Kmart, came in. It was just pure, really bad timing. They happened to go into the chamber's office, which was at the time located in the Berry Hill building on Dewey Avenue, right as a board of directors meeting was letting out. And the chamber president at the time, who I don't know who it was, according to Bob Nail, basically like confronted him and told him what a terrible thing it was that he had brought Walmart to Sapulpa, and that how it was killing Sapulpa's businesses and killing Sapulpa's small businesses. And the developer for Kmart was literally standing right there and heard this whole thing and said that he didn't like the attitude that Sapulpa was putting forth, and so they completely backed out of the deal. And so, what am I trying to say here? Basically, is that was it a bad thing that Kmart didn't come to Sapulpa? I mean, the truth is that we're never really going to know, right? I mean, we could have had a really great chance with Kmart in the 1990s, and then when Kmart went bankrupt, we would have a empty shopping center sitting there, just like Sand Springs has, or a lot of other places have now. Um, but there was the missed opportunity there is really what I want to talk about, though, because the lack of the ability of Sapulpa willing to, kind of catch up with the times, so to speak, has affected us in a lot of ways. And this is just one way. And that's not to say that big box retail is everything that we need and that they're going to solve all of Sapulpa's problems. That's not what's going to happen here. And as anybody who has been a part of Sapulpa knows, we don't typically see most of our problems solved in that way. And we do have to lend a certain amount of respect to the small businesses here. I'm going to talk about one of them here. This is a daycare that has, over the last several years, for years, purchased shoes for back to school children, back to school shoes for children at the daycare. This was just 2 years ago. They purchased 57 pairs of shoes, and they've been doing this for a long time. This is the same business owner that now owns Domama's right here in downtown Sapulpa, and they continue to be a great service to the company. And so, is a big box retailer like Kmart or Walmart going to do that? They help out in a lot of ways, but they're not going to do something like this necessarily, right? It's up to our small businesses to be able to recognize these types of needs and work hard and sacrifice in order to fulfill them. Another example that we have is one that's happening literally right down the street from me. I snapped this picture earlier this morning. This is the Free Coffee Friday at CTS Coffee, 114 East Dewey. And so it happens every Friday. This is not something that Starbucks up the road is doing. It's not something that any other coffee shop is doing. This is a weekly event that CTS Coffee does. And again, local people, local business owners step in and help basically create an event for gathering and for networking and just hanging out with everybody on a Friday morning. And then, of course, if you want to talk about maybe the biggest effect that local businesses have had on Sapulpa, it would be this one right here. So the Route 66 Christmas shoot is largely produced constructed and financed by private citizens and small businesses in Sapulpa. And then it is something that brings in, 500,000 people into Sapulpa over the course of the holiday season. And of course, it's coming back this year, so it's going to be an even bigger deal. However, we have to recognize that really the issue is here not that we need to choose a side on whether we're going to commit to big box retailers like Chipotle or like Kmart, or whether we're going to commit to our small town retailers like Domama or CTX. The truth is that we really have to find a way to get along. We have to be able to coexist because big box retail is going to drive out of town shopper into Sapulpa to spend their money here, which leads to increased tax revenue. And, additional restaurant and dining options are what help people make the decision on where they want to live. And as we're seeing people start to migrate more to the south and the west of Sapulpa, of Tulsa, actually, Sapulpa really stands to gain a lot from that if we can choose to capitalize on the opportunities. So, really, as Sapulpans, we need to stop this kind of stuff right here where we have our comments where nobody can basically get on board with what we're trying to do. And we really have to embrace what Sapulpa has to offer, really in the big and the small ways. Okay. And so I think at the end of all of this, if we'll find a way to all just get along and be welcoming to both the big box retailers and supporting the same small mom and pop shops that we've always supported, I think then Sapulpa's best and brightest days are ahead of it. So, hope you guys enjoyed the show today. I appreciate having you on. I will see you again on Monday where we talk about all things happening in the town that we love. Have a great weekend, everybody. Oh, you know what? Actually, before I go, I do need to do this one thing because I missed it on Wednesday. The audio problems. Speaking of big box retailers helping out, Chipotle is going to be doing a fundraiser for the band. You can go there between 4 and 8 p.m. on Saturday, March 7th, and purchase food from Chipotle, or you can buy it online, order online, and use that code that's on the graphic there and support Sapulpa bands. Okay, so sometimes big box stores do actually help out quite a bit. So have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you again on Monday. I'm Mike here with Sapulpa Times. Thanks. We'll see you soon. Bye bye.